What happens in January for the Brexit debate? I mean, every day we go through this, and there's I'm going to call it a London soap opera. Where do we stand February 1st, Kamal?
I think you're absolutely right, Tom. This is a soap opera. You really come. We're locking and reloading into the start of the first phase of the negotiations, where you're having denials, counter denials. You're starting to get positions being put down from the UK and from the European positions. I think what's important here is that the markets are treating this as posturing. We've been through many iterations of European crisis, and particularly through the Brexit crisis, all the capitulation has come from the UK side. And I think that's where the market is relatively safe in its view that ultimately, if the UK wants to get its timeline of 2 years in place and then a transition, it needs to cave in on some of these demands. And I think that's where we're coming from at the moment. The UK wants to sound hard-headed, the Europeans want to sound hard-headed. Yeah. But again, as we saw through the first phase, ultimately, they believe a deal will be struck.
Kamal, Steve Blitz knows that the inflation is different in the United States versus London. Kamal, what is the character of inflation for this year in London? Is it still about sterling? Is it still about Brexit? Or is there a new character to it?
Well, you saw from Sainsbury's yesterday, for example, that they think that the Brexit pass-through effects of sterling weakness on inflation have peaked, and we very much agree with that, which is behind our call that the Bank of England is unlikely to hike again this year. It's now very much contingent on what happens to the second-round effects, the wage impacts. We did see from the KPMG REC survey earlier this week that firms are saying that there's a tightness in the labour market, and that's putting some pressure on wages. So if you see the Vliga argument, the Michael Saunders argument, that ultimately we will see these second-round impacts, that's where we think, or that's where the inflation numbers will really have the best chance of remaining robust.